Prophet's personality and character. The life of no other religious teacher or prophet is so well recorded as the life of the Prophet of Islam. Soon after his death, his followers began to collect the sayings or statements made by or about the Prophet. A detailed account of his life has thus been handed down to us so that we have a complete picture of every aspect of his life. Such was the love and devotion that the Messenger of Allah inspired in the minds and the hearts of his followers, that they eagerly watched his every movement and gesture and paid great attention to every word and phrase he uttered. The faithful transmission of all that the beloved Prophet had said and the detailed description of all that he did and the manner of his doing it became a most praiseworthy practice, and soon there developed a whole science of tradition. From these traditions, a modest attempt is made here to draw a pen picture of the Prophet as he appeared to those among whom he moved as an intimate, affectionate companion, a counselor, comrade and friend. Let us see what sort of man he really was. We know what he looked like. He was a man of medium height, well built. His hair was black and a bit curly. His complexion was fair and bright. He had a broad forehead. His beard was full. He walked briskly, bending forward slightly. He spoke clearly and deliberately so that those present could follow him easily and remember what he said. He used to repeat 3 times to ensure that his meaning was fully grasped. He treated all very kindly. He was particularly good with children. He shared in people's joys and griefs. He was truthful, gentle, and courteous. He was extremely simple in matters of food and drink. He never drank wine, but he liked a cup of milk. He liked honey with barley bread. He used being modest whilst consuming meals, which consisted of a handful of dates. His clothes were simple and had many patches on them. He despised the pomp of royalty. When he had become the ruler of Medina, his life was much of the same. He used to mend his shoes and clothes himself. The only luxury he allowed himself was perfume, which he loved very much. He loved cleanness and had inculcated this habit in his followers as well. The Holy Prophet of Islam were exceptionally kind to animals. On one occasion he saw a donkey which had been branded on the face. He inquired the reason for this and was told that it was done for the purpose of identifying well-bred animals. He was very displeased and forbade the branding of animals on the face, as it is a very sensitive part of the body. He said that in the future animals should be branded on their legs if it had to be done at all. On another occasion he saw somebody who had caught the young one of a dove. He told him to set them free and not to torture the mother. Another thing of great importance which the Holy Prophet taught to the people was to work with their own hands. He himself set example by helping his wives in their household duties. He milked his own goats. He carried stones when the mosque at Medina was built. No work was beneath his dignity. He looked upon this world as a place in which only lives as a wayfarer. He said, "My case is like that of a traveler who stops at noon under the shade of a tree to rest for a while before going further on his journey. He did not desire worldly riches and comforts. He listened to everybody with patience. If a person treated him rudely, he never attempted retaliation. He was ever ready to forgive people their faults and trespasses. His generosity towards his enemies has no parallel in the history of the world. When Mecca fell to Muslims and the Holy Prophet entered the city victorious, those who had treated him and his followers most cruelly received his free pardon, even without asking for it. 13 years of persecution were forgiven and forgotten in one single moment. He always treated his neighbors with extreme kindness and consideration. He used to say that the angel Gabriel, or Jibreel, has emphasized consideration towards one's neighbor so often that he sometimes began to think that a neighbor would perhaps be included among the prescribed hairs. He devoted most of his time to the worship of God. Sometimes he stood so long in prayer that his feet would be swollen. In fact, in the words of Aisha, the wife of the Holy Prophet, his character was the Quran. Next chapter, the wisdom of the Holy Prophet. The Kaaba is the first home of worship that was built for mankind for the worship of one true God. We cannot say who built it, but we are told by God in the Holy Quran that it was rebuilt by Ibrahim and his son Ismail. The Kaaba has been the center of life in Mecca from the time it was rebuilt. People from far and wide came here for the pilgrimage to the house of Allah. In the days of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, all the important decisions about the affairs of the city were made at the Kaaba. Whenever any dispute arose, the heads of the various families living in Mecca would gather there to discuss it. Sometimes after the birth of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Kaaba was in a very bad state of repairs, and the people of Mecca had decided to rebuild it. A dispute arose about the placing of the famous black stone. The black stone had always been held in the reverence because it was the Prophet Ibrahim who placed it in the Kaaba. It is a stone in the southeastern corner of the wall and is about 4 feet from the ground. Several leading families of the Quraysh tribe had claimed the honor of placing the stone in position. The controversy became heated, tempers rose, and threats were exchanged. Some of the leaders sensed the delicate situation and feared that it might lead to violence if no agreement was reached. So one of them suggested that the matter should be settled by one who would be the first to arrive at the Kaaba. Muhammad chanced to enter the enclosure of the Kaaba at that moment, so the dispute was referred to him. Muhammad listened very calmly to the claims of each party. He spread out his cloak on the ground and placed the black stone on it. He then invited the leaders of all the tribes to lift the cloak and carry it to the place where it had been built and put in position. When the stone was thus carried to the place, he lifted it and placed it in the wall. This satisfied everybody, as each leader had been given the honor of lifting the sacred stone. Thus, a dispute which had threatened bloodshed was resolved peacefully through the wisdom of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Next chapter, slaves get their freedom. Long ago, people used to buy and sell men and women. Even children were bought and sold in the open market. They were called slaves and they used to work for their masters throughout their lives. Islam was the first religion to denounce slavery. The Holy Prophet of Islam and his companions always tried to buy slaves and free them. Here in the story, one such slave whose name was Zaid. Zaid belonged to a noble family and was an intelligent young man. He was captured while in his teens in a tribal raid and was sold from one person to another until finally he was purchased by Khadija, a rich lady of Mecca. When Muhammad married Khadija, she offered all her belongings, including her slaves, to him. He set all the slaves free, but Zaid begged him to let him continue to live with him. So Zaid remained with Muhammad, and with time his attachment to him grew. It so happened that the father and the uncle of Zaid traced him to Mecca. They came to Muhammad and asked that he should be allowed to return with them. They offered to pay as much as ransom as might be demanded. Muhammad told them that Zaid was free and that he could go wherever he liked. He sent for Zaid and showed him his father and uncle. Zaid was much pleased to see them after such a long time. He was told that his mother had remained grief-stricken all through the period of separation and was waiting eagerly for his return. They then asked him to accompany them home, but Zaid refused to go. He said, "Father, is there any person in the world who does not love his parents? My heart is full of love for you and my mother, but I love this man Muhammad so much that I cannot endure separation from him." But Zayd's father and his uncle tried to persuade him to return home but failed. He remained firm in his decision not to leave his gracious master, though he sent loving messages to his mother. When Muhammad saw his devotion, he took him to the Kaaba and in the presence of his father and uncle declared that Zayd would henceforth be his son. Next chapter, Umar accepts Islam. Before accepting Islam, Umar was one of the worst enemies of the Muslims. He was a great soldier. When he saw that in spite of the strong opposition Islam was spreading day by day, he decided to kill the Prophet in order to finish the new faith forever. With his vicious motive, he took a sword in hand and set out in the search of the Holy Prophet. A friend met him on the way and asked him where he was going. "To kill Muhammad," he replied. "But don't you know that your sister Fatima and her husband have already become Muslims?" said the man. Umar was greatly shocked to learn this. He decided to deal with him first before going to the Prophet. As he reached his sister's house, he heard a recitation being made inside the house. A Muslim teacher, Abab by name, was teaching them the holy book. As soon as they saw Umar approaching, Abab hid himself and Fatima hid the leaves on which the verses were written. Umar faced his sister and brother-in-law and said, "I learned that you have joined the new religion which Muhammad has brought." They tried to explain to him to calm him down, but Umar was in no mood to listen to any explanation. He raised his sword to hit his brother-in-law. Fatima, who was standing nearby, stepped in quickly to save her husband and was injured slightly in doing so. Blood began to flow from her face. She looked straight into Umar's eyes and said bravely, "Yes, we are Muslims now and shall remain so. Do what you may." Seeing the blood on his sister's face and hearing this bold reply, Umar calmed down quickly. Soon he was a changed man. He requested that the leaves of the Holy Quran which were being read be shown to him. Fatima refused lest he should destroy them. Umar promised that he would not do so. She told him to wash himself, and when he did, Fatima gave him the verses. Very calmly he began to read the verses of the Holy Quran, and in no time the truth dawned on him. He decided to become a Muslim. In the meantime, Khabbab had come out of his hiding. He said, "God is my witness. Only yesterday I heard the Prophet pray for the conversion of Umar or Amr bin Hisham. Your change is a result of that prayer." Umar asked them where the Prophet was and made straight for that place, still carrying his sword in his hand. When he reached the house, the Holy Prophet was sitting with some of his companions. He knocked at the door. The companions peeped through the keyhole and saw him standing with the sword in his hand. They hesitated to open the door. The Holy Prophet told them to open the door. Umar came in. The Prophet asked him, "Umar, what brings you here?" "I have come to accept Islam," said Umar. The Holy Prophet and the companions was much pleased to hear this, and all of them said that one voice, "Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest." The news spread throughout Mecca. It was a severe blow to the enemies of Islam, as Umar was a very brave and influential man in Mecca. The Muslims up to that time used to say their prayers secretly behind closed doors. Now, as Umar was one of them, they decided to say their prayers openly. Umar had done so much for Islam. After the death of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr, he was the chosen Khalifa by the Muslims. Next chapter, I will stand by you. The religion of Islam made a strong appeal to the weak and oppressed. The slaves who suffered great hardships began to hope that the message of Islam might bring an end to slavery. Women who were treated worse than the animals began to feel that the time might come when they would be given the rights due to them in the society. So, a large number of the early converts came from such groups. As the number of the Muslims grew larger, the Meccans started persecuting them, thinking that it would stop the further spread of Islam. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was no exception. His house was stoned. On many occasions, rubbish was thrown on him as he passed by. In spite of all this opposition, the message of Islam continued to spread. Seeing this, the non-believers were greatly worried. They sent a deputation to the Prophet's uncle and guardian, Abu Talib. They said to him, "You are one of our chiefs, and for your sake we have so far spared your nephew. We demand that he should refrain from saying anything against our idols. If he agrees to this, there is no dispute between us and him. If you cannot persuade him to do this, then one of two things must happen. Either you will give up your nephew, or all your people will give you up." Abu Talib was much upset. He sent for the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and told him that what had happened. The Prophet listened to him carefully. Tears came to his eyes. He did not want his uncle to suffer because of him. He said, I ask you not to give up your people. I ask you not to stand by me. God is my witness that even if they were to place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I would not desist from preaching the truth with which God has sent me. Hearing this bold reply from his nephew, Abu Talib said, Son of my brother, go your way, do your duty as you see it. Let my people give me up, I'll stand by you. Next chapter, the journey to Taif. There was so much opposition to the Holy Prophet in the Mecca that it seemed impossible for him to preach to the Meccans. Whenever he was out in the street, abuses were hurled at him and he was ridiculed. Sometimes rubbish was thrown at him. The Prophet did not mind all sort of ill treatment as long as he had the chance to preach. But there came a time when he could preach no longer in Mecca. He decided to go somewhere other town to convey the divine message. He went to Taif, some 60 miles away. Zayd accompanied him on his journey. The Holy Prophet met the chiefs of the town and invited them to Islam, but they ignored his message. Neither his chiefs nor the people would listen to him. He tried to address some people at one place, but found hatred in their hearts for him, so much so that they set vagabonds and layabouts on him, who pelted him with stones and drove him out of the town. Zayd was hit by stones and was injured. The Holy Prophet was also hit and began to bleed from the injuries to his legs. They hurried away from the town, but still people came after them. The chase went up until both were far away and several miles out of Taif. The Holy Prophet was very sad and disappointed at the treatment he had received from the people of Taif. They sat down at one place to rest. Suddenly an angel appeared and asked him, Would you like all those who treated you badly to be destroyed? The Holy Prophet replied, No, I hope that their children at least would accept and worship, i.e. the children would at least accept Islam and worship the one, the true God, Allah. The place where he was resting was a vineyard belonging to two Meccans. When the owners of the vineyard noticed his injuries, they took pity on him and sent a Christian slave, Adas by name, with a tray of ripe grapes to him. Adas was so moved by the sight of the Holy Prophet and was so impressed with his talk that he became a Muslim. He began to kiss his forehead, hands and feet and asked for his blessings. The Prophet stayed for a while and then started his journey back to Mecca. Next chapter, Fear not, God is with us. When the opponents of the Holy Prophet saw that Islam was making progress and that there was steady increase in the number of Muslims, they were greatly provoked. They had employed all means of persecution to stop the progress, as they considered Islam to be a definite threat to their way of life and to their beliefs and doctrines. No one was secure against persecution, not even the Prophet himself. The worst affected were the slaves who accepted Islam. Their matters inflicted unbearable torments upon them, in vain attempt to force them to renounce Islam. They were taken out during the scorching heat of the midday sun and were made to lie down on their bare backs on the burning sand and rocks, or stones were heaped on them. Boys were incited to make them victims of their cruel sport. They would tie ropes to the ankles and the necks of a slave and drag him through the streets paved with rough stones, leaving him with bruises and cuts. As the Muslims had strong faith, they bore all these sufferings with patience and remained steadfast. There came a time when life was so impossible for them in Mecca that they decided to migrate. They went to Yathrib, where Muslims and Islam had spread already, and Muslims were living there peacefully. Family after family left the city and made their way to Yathrib secretly. Sometimes the whole street would be emptied in the course of one night. In the morning, the Meccans would see the doors locked and would realize that the residents had fled. At last, the Holy Prophet and a few of his companions were left in Mecca. They were also ready to leave and were waiting for God's command. The Meccans saw all this, did not want the Muslims to prosper in Yathrib, so all the chiefs of Mecca gathered for consultation. They decided to kill the Prophet without further delay. In order to spread the responsibility amongst them, they decided to appoint one man from each tribe to do the job. They fixed a particular night for this purpose. At this point, the Prophet received God's command to leave Mecca, and so happened that the night fixed for his departure was on that which his opponent had chosen for the evil design. Abu Bakr, having learned from the Prophet of the decision to leave Mecca, begged for permission to accompany him. The Prophet gave his assent. The following evening, the Prophet left his home as soon as it was dark. While those who intended to kill him were gathering around the house, the Holy Prophet went away unnoticed. Abu Bakr also joined him, and the two made their way out of the city. They went up to one of the surrounding hills and took shelter in a cave called Taur. This cave had very narrow entrance, so that a person would have to lie flat to crawl into it. It was not a safe place to hide, as there were considerable danger from reptiles of all kinds. In the morning, of the people of Mecca learned that the Prophet had left. They sent a party in search of him. They announced that anyone who would bring him back dead or alive would receive a reward of 100 camels. Following the footprints, they arrived at the mouth of the cave in which the Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr had taken shelter. The tracker announced that the marks of the footsteps of the fugitives did not go any further. Therefore, they had either sunk into the earth or had risen to the sky. The whole party ridiculed him at his remarks. They did not bother to look inside the cave, as they knew that the cave was not a safe place of refuge. Who on earth would take the risk of scorches bodily harm and possibly death from the poisonous snakes and vipers inside the cave? Abu Bakr got very worried when he saw them standing there. At the mouth of the cave, he could hear their voices. He could even see them moving about through a narrow opening of the cave. He whispered to the Holy Prophet that his fear that they might be discovered. The Holy Prophet replied calmly, "Grieve not, for Allah is with us." Abu Bakr was reassured. The Meccan thought that they had missed the track and returned frustrated. The Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr spent 2 nights and 2 days in the cave. Then they left, and after a few days' journey reached Yatrib, where the Muslim gave them a warm welcome. Next chapter, the prophecy about the gold bangles. The Holy Prophet was naturally very sad when he saw that he was forced to leave Mecca, the city where he had been born and brought up, the only home he had known. It was a place where his forefathers had lived and died, and where he had received the divine call. With these thoughts in the mind, he had last looked at the city and said, "Mecca, you are dearer to me than any other place on earth, but your people would not let me live here." For 2 days and 2 nights, the Holy Prophet Abu Bakr remained hidden in the cave. Then they proceeded in the direction of Yatrib. Suraka bin Malik, who had heard of the reward announced by the Quraysh, was on the lookout for them. One day he spotted 2 mounted camels heading north. He guessed that those were the person he was looking for, so he spurred his horse in their direction. He did not go very far when the legs of his horse sank into the sand and he fell down. He got up, took out his arrows, and considered his luck in the old Arab fashion. The arrows showed bad luck, but the temptation of the road was so great that he mounted his horse again and set out after the 2. As he came closer, the legs of his horse sank again in the sand and he fell down. Again he consulted his arrows, and they gave the same message of bad luck. Suraka changed his mind. He realized that the party was under divine protection, so he called out to them and told them of his evil intention and of his change of heart. As he was returning, the Prophet said to him, "Suraka, how will you feel with the gold bangles of the king of Iran was on your wrists?" Suraka was amazed to hear this prophecy. Later he accepted Islam and lived in Medina. It so happened that during the Khilafat of Umar, Iran and its treasures fell to Muslims, including gold bangles which kings used to wear on state functions. Umar sent for Suraka and asked him to wear the gold bangles. "How can I wear them?" said Suraka. "The wearings of gold is forbidden in Islam for men." Umar said, "I know, but you should wear them in order to fulfill the prophecy of the Holy Prophet." Suraka put on the gold bangles, and thus prophecy made by the Holy Prophet years earlier was fulfilled to the letter. Next chapter, 2 young eagles. When the Holy Prophet was forced to leave Mecca, he decided to settle in Yatrib, later known as Medina Tun Nabi or Medina. Islam had all respect to the city, and there was fairly large Muslim community when he arrived there. More and more people joined the fold of Islam. Soon Medina became the first city for Muslims, or the first Muslim city. When the Meccans learned that the Prophet had been warmly received by the people of Medina and that Islam was making great progress among the tribes there, they resolved to attack Medina. They raised an army of 1,000 armed fighters, most of whom were well experienced in warfare, and started marching towards Medina. 1 year after the Holy Prophet reached there. When the news reached the Holy Prophet, he took counsel with his people and gathered 313 men to fight the enemy. Most of these men had no experience of fighting. Some of them were mere boys in the teens. The Muslims were well equipped with teens, but they lacked in equipment. Thus, the Muslims were ill-equipped. There were only 2 horses and a few camels among the whole lot. As this was the first battle between Muslims and the non-believers, every Muslim fighter, young or old, was eager to show bravery in battle. All of them were determined to die in defense of their faith. Such was a motley crowd led by the Holy Prophet which came out of the city to meet the enemy. The 2 forces met at a place called Badr. One of the few experienced fighters in the Muslim force was Abdul Rahman bin Auf. He was happy because the day he was longing for had come. He could now show his skill and valor on the battlefield. As the Holy Prophet arranged the Muslims for the battle, Abdul Rahman looked towards his sides and was greatly disappointed to see 2 young boys on either side of him. He felt exposed on both sides and would have to take good care of himself. As he was contemplating the situation, one of the boys nudged him and said, "Uncle, where is Abu Jahl, who used to persecute the Holy Prophet and harass the Muslims?" Abdul Rahman had not yet shown him Abu Jahl when the boy on the other side whispered the same question in his ear. Abdul Rahman raised his finger in order to point out Abu Jahl, who was on the horseback, well armed and right in the heart of the Meccan army. No sooner did Abdul Rahman point out Abu Jahl than the 2 boys dashed forward into the ranks of the army with the spear of an angel. The attack was so sudden that everybody was shaken. The soldiers, the guards round Abu Jahl were taken by surprise. They attacked the boys in order to prevent them from going further towards the leader. One of the boys received a blow on his shoulder. His arm was cut and hung loose by his side, yet he continued to fight with one hand. The other boy was also injured, but he did not retreat. Neither did they retreat. They went on and on until they reached Abu Jahl. They pounced upon him with such force that the experienced commander fell to the ground and was fatally wounded. The 2 young brave Muslim boys did what surprised even the best among the Muslim fighters. Next chapter, the undecided battle. To wipe out the shame and the disgrace suffered at the defeat of Badr, the Quraysh announced that they would attack Medina again. They made preparation on a large scale, and after 1 year attacked with such a much larger and stronger force. The army consisted of 3,000 fighters, 700 of whom were in armor and 200 mounted on horses. When the news of the approach of this force reached the Holy Prophet, he called his followers and held a council. With 1,000 men at his command, the Holy Prophet came out to defend the city. At a short distance from Medina, they camped for the night. In the morning, when the Holy Prophet was making his rounds, he discovered that a certain number of Jews of Medina had also joined in. As they were under no obligation to fight outside the city, the Prophet sent them back. Abdullah bin Ubay was also among the Muslims who came out to fight amongst the Meccans. He was a hypocrite. He objected to the Prophet's decision to send the Jews back. He felt that the Muslims were no match for the Meccans. As soon as the Jews left, he also withdrew with 300 of his supporters. The whole Prophet was thus left with 700 only under his command, out of which only 100 were in armor. The Muslim army reached a place called Uhud. The Holy Prophet posted 50 of his men on a narrow hilly pass at the back of it and told them that they must guard the pass and on no account should they leave the post without receiving his orders. With the remaining force, he faced an army nearly 5 times larger as his and many times better in equipment. Soon after the battle began, the Meccans retreated and started running away from the battlefield, hotly pursued by the Muslims. Seeing this, the Muslims were eager to join in the pursuit. The commander reminded them of the clear orders of the Prophet and tried in vain to stop them from going after the fleeing enemy. However, most of them left saying that there was no point in staying there while the enemy was in flight. One of the Meccan commanders, Khalid bin Walid, who later became a great Muslim general, saw this poorly guarded pass. He drew the attention of his colleagues. Amr bin As towards it. Both these generals stopped their fleeing warriors and headed towards the pass from behind the hills. They killed the remaining Muslim guards and attacked the Muslim forces from the rear. The attack was so sudden that for some time everything was in a state of confusion. The Muslims were scattered all over the field. Some of them had already withdrawn from the battlefield, thinking that the enemy had run away. Only a handful of the companions remained with the Holy Prophet to repel the attack. The fleeing Meccans stopped and returned when they heard the war cries of the fellows who had attacked the Muslims from the rear. The Holy Prophet was in great danger. Those around him were failing and falling one by one under the intense attack of the enemy. There also came a volley of arrows directed at the Prophet. Talha, a faithful friend of the Prophet, stretched out his arm to shield the face of the Holy Prophet from the arrows. Arrow after arrow struck his arm and pierced through his hand. He saw blood, felt pain, but did not let his arm drop. Ultimately, he lost the use of his arm. Stones were also hurled at the Prophet. One hit him in the face, then came another blow which drove the rings of the helmet right into his cheek. He fell down unconscious among the heap of dead Muslim fighters. The Meccans thought that they had killed the Prophet and withdrew, calling it a day. The Muslim also thought for a while that he had died, and the rumors spread like wildfire, so much so that the women and children in Medina ran out in the direction of Uhud to discover the truth. When the remaining of the Muslim fighters realized that it had happened, they gathered around the spot where the Holy Prophet had fallen. The Prophet soon returned to consciousness. Abu Sufyan, the enemy commander, who was then rejoicing with his men, shouted, "We have killed Muhammad." The Holy Prophet told his followers to keep quiet, as there was no reply from the Muslim side. Abu Sufyan became certain of the death of the Prophet. He cried again, "We have killed Abu Bakr." Still no reply from the Muslim. Then the enemy commander raised his voice and said, "We have killed Umar as well." The Holy Prophet again told the Muslims to remain quiet. Abu Sufyan then said, "Hooray, we have killed all three," and raised a national cry in praise of Hubal, the god, saying, "Glory be to Hubal." At this stage, the Holy Prophet told the Muslims to reply, "What shall we say, O Messenger of Allah?" They asked, "Say, Allah alone is great and mighty. He alone is high and honored," said the Holy Prophet. Hearing this reply, the enemy was disappointed to know that the Holy Prophet, Abu Bakr and Umar were all alive. Though the Muslims were not now very small in number, yet the Meccans dared not attack again and returned to Mecca. Next chapter, a strange contest. When the Muslims came out of Medina to fight against the Meccan army in the Battle of Uhud, some youngsters also accompanied them in the zeal to fight for Islam. The Holy Prophet found them out during his inspection and asked them to go back. Among them was Zayd bin Thabit and Abu Sa'id Khudri, Samura bin Jundub, and Rafi bin Khudayj. Zayd was an orphan. He was in his teens. When the Battle of Uhud was fought, he offered himself for the battle, but was sent back by the Prophet. Abu Sa'id Khudri was 13 years old. He was also very keen to take part in the battle. His father approached the Holy Prophet and submitted to him. "Messenger of Allah, my son is very strong. I'm sure he will fight well if he is permitted to take part in the battle." The Holy Prophet looked at the boy again, praised him in his spirit, but decided that he should go back as he was too young to take part in the fighting. Rafi was also of the same age. His father too went to the Holy Prophet and said, "Messenger of Allah, my son Rafi is a very good archer. He would be of great help to us if he was let him to stay on." When the Holy Prophet turned towards Rafi, he stood on his toes to make himself look taller than he actually was. The Prophet smiled and allowed him to stay. Samura was also rejected because of his young age. He complained to his father, saying, "The Holy Prophet allowed Rafi to take part in the battle, but rejected me. Well, I am stronger than him. I can surely beat him in a wrestling bout." This was reported to the Holy Prophet. The Prophet called both boys and asked Samura to prove his claim. The wrestling bout began, and he noted Samura threw Rafi to the ground. The Holy Prophet smiled and permitted Samura to join the force as well. During the battle, these youngsters fought very bravely. Rafi proved to be a good archer, but in the course of the battle, an arrow pierced his chest and injured him. An attempt was made to extract it, but failed. The point of the arrow broke inside his body. He recovered from the injury, but the wound reopened in his old age and proved fatal. Next chapter, 2 martyrs. This is the story of 2 companions of the Holy Prophet. Their names were Zayd and Khubayb. Both of them had dedicated their lives to the cause of Islam. It so happened that the representatives of the 2 tribes, Adal and Kara of Banu Lahain, had approached the Holy Prophet and told him that their tribes were interested in Islam. They requested to send them to the Muslim teachers so they could learn more about Islam. The Holy Prophet agreed to send 10 of his companions with them. Zayd and Khubayb were among them. When this party reached the territory of Banu Lahain, they found that they had been betrayed. Actually, Banu Lahain were arch enemies of Islam. They devised this scheme with the intention of killing the Muslim scholars. This small party was attacked by 200 men with arrows and other weapons. The Muslims climbed up a nearby hill and challenged the enemy. The non-believers offered to spare their lives so they could calm down and surrender themselves. The Muslims did not believe them and chose to fight to the finish. So when an attack was launched on them, they fought bravely, but being very few in numbers, they could not do so much. 7 of them fell down dead. The remaining 3, they again said surrender, and their lives will be spared. This time they surrendered. As soon as they came down, they were made prisoners and were tied down with ropes. One of these 3 said that he was a breach of agreement and refused to go with them. At this they attacked him and killed him on the spot. The remaining 2 captives, namely Zayd and Khubayb, were taken to them by to Mecca and were sold as slaves. The Meccan who bought Khubayb wanted to murder him so as to avenge his own father's death, who had been killed in the Battle of Badr. On the day when Khubayb was doing some work with his sharp knife, the master's child came close to him to see what he was doing. Khubayb took the child in his lap and began to talk to him. When the mother of the child noticed this, she was terrified in case the prisoner could harm the child. Khubayb saw the worried face of the mother. He said to her, "Don't be afraid, I do not intend to harm any child. We Muslims do not play faults." The woman was so impressed by what she heard that she used to say afterwards, "I have never seen a prisoner like Khubayb." Khubayb remained in captivity for many days. The last day came when they decided to kill him. Hundreds of the people gathered around him when he was being led to his execution. They asked him his last wish. He requested them to allow him to say his short prayer. They agreed to this. He said his prayer quickly. When he finished, he said that he wanted to prolong his supplication, but did not do so, lest they should think he was afraid of death. Very confidently he began to recite, "So long as I die a Muslim, I care not whether my headless body drops to the right or to the left, and why should I? My death is in the will of God. If he wills, he can bless every part of my body." He had hardly finished when the sword fell on his neck and his head fell. Zayd, the other prisoner, was also taken out to be executed. Just before he was killed, the chief of the Mecca approached him and said, "Would you not wish that Muhammad should be in your place today and should be sitting secure among your family?" Zayd replied, "God is my witness, I would rather die than that the Prophet should feel as much as a prickling sensation of a thorn in his feet in Medina." Thus he also laid down his life for the cause of Islam.